Hello, everyone. My name is Elton Beardy. As I was saying, I'm a cultural practitioner for St. Joseph's Care Group, working with the Indigenous health team. And so tonight, I just wanted to say, miigwech to Elder Jerry for opening us up in a good way, and for everyone's introductions. Welcome, everyone. So this is, I was asked to be here tonight in order to deliver some information to you, some teachings. And so for this session, we'll be talking a little bit about Indigenous perspectives and how our philosophies and our culture, our languages inform our understandings of health and wellness, and just a couple, just a few tips that will help us along in terms of caring for our people and our patients. So again, I'm just an employee of St. Joseph's Care Group. I'm not receiving any financial support for tonight's session other than just for my regular work hours. So again, this is our learning objective. By the end of it tonight, you guys will be able to describe Indigenous teachings of health, wellness, and balance, and you'll be able to situate them within the path of life continuum. And so just before we kind of begin, I do acknowledge that the teaching of Debwewin, which is truth, we're going to be learning a little bit more about that. But within Debwewin, we understand that teachings will vary across Turtle Island, especially within the same nation. Teachings are very, they will vary from region to region. And so I just want to acknowledge that, no way is the wrong way and no way is the one right way. It's all valid under Creator. So next slide, please. And so this was a prayer that was given to me. It was a poem that was given to me quite some time ago, and I incorporated it as part of my practice when it comes to working with patients who are at end of life and working with their families. And I think that because I think that it touches on Indigenous perspectives and how we view death, dying, but also life. And so I make a prayer now to your old ones, to those whose face you never saw and voice you never heard and name you haven't known, that they remember you while you try to find them remembering you, that they come at the proper time to gather you in, that they whisper to you the truth that you haven't been alone and won't be, that they know the hard friendship of the ending of days. I make a prayer that all who are there at your making will be there for your gathering in, that their hands will be there just by your opening head, your little fountain, to make a home for your sorrowing heart and for you. I make a prayer that your house and your people will be blessed by your coming and your going, that the day will come when they will boast of for a while having known you, and will marvel at the way of your going out from among them, and that you might be reason enough for them to continue for a while, and that in the days to come you will be claimed as noble, as an ancestor worth coming from. And so I say that on as well for your behalf as well. So feel free to use this prayer if you feel so inclined to do that. So when we talk about life, when we talk about Anishinaabe perspective about life, we begin even before conception. And so for this next slide here, these are some of the gifts that are given to us before we are placed here on the earth. And so as every spirit prepares to come down to earth from the spirit realm, we negotiate with Creator. And so these negotiations, within these negotiations, we're given a number of gifts. We're given a spirit name, a clan, colors. And so these three gifts are very critical to informing a person about their identity and who they're going to be, what their purpose will be, upon this earth. The spirit name speaks to them as an individual. That is, it will usually describe, their purpose, what kind of work that they're meant to do, and or qualities that they embody, or sometimes, their name as well will also be, honoring an ancestor or honoring, their family within, their community. And so within their clan, the clan system is the basis of our governance and our spiritual systems. And so the clan system is very critical to, understanding just how it is when we govern ourselves, when we come together as a community and as a nation in order to really to be together as a people and to work together as a people. The clan system informed that. And so each and every single clan has a different purpose. And so only through coming together, all these different parts can, our nation move forward in a good way, in our communities in a good way. And so that clan, that symbol encapsulated our place within community. So, and our colors, again, are pieces of our identity. And so we were also given language. We were also given the language of our spirits, Anishinaabe. Very, very important, very, very critical to understanding, these ways of living, these ways of thinking, these ways of being. Very, very critical. I cannot understate that. And so this person was also given skills and talents that will help them along their life journey, that they were trusted to uphold and to carry forth in their purpose here on this earth. As well, spirits were also given choice of parentage. So we got to choose who we were born to. And this, and so these two right here, these last 2 points are, they're very, it's kind of an oxymoron here, but there were fated occurrences that we had agreed to with Creator that will happen in our life. So events specifically that were designed to help us live our life and to help us carry forth the reason for our being here. But along with all of that, we were also given free will. Deny those things. And so we were also given that ability to live as we saw fit. And so, sorry, can you guys hear me? I just wanted to check because.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, next slide, please. So those important gifts were carried forward into our life as we know it. As well, we were also informed about original instruction and sacred law. These original instructions and sacred laws were given to us at the beginning of time, before the first man was lowered upon this earth. It was given to us, by the earth. These instructions were given to us by, the sky. These instructions were given to us by the moon, by the sun, and so these original instructions and sacred laws were also bound to the land. And so just as humanity was, the spirit of humanity, we were lowered from the sky and put onto this earth. Our bodies were created from the earth and from the water. And our bodies our lungs were filled with that air and all these elements. It's said that there's a little fire in our heart. And that's pretty much scientifically proven that there is, our heartbeat is, it's facilitated by electricity. And so those are teachings that were given to us as we were put down upon this earth. And so a really critical, I guess a really easy to understand example of such sacred laws would be the seven sacred teachings. They're commonly known as the seven grandfather teachings. I like to call them the seven sacred teachings, just to honor those, those grandmothers as well, to acknowledge those grandmothers. But these teachings came to us at a time of great strife, when when humanity had forgotten original instruction, when we had forgotten sacred laws, when we had forgotten how to live in a good way. And so it was said that this boy, this infant, was chosen by Megaze, this eagle, to go up to spirit realm, to travel all these realms of star realm, and upon each layer he met with a grandfather spirit, and that grandfather spirit gave that child, or gave that chosen one, each and every single one of these teachings. So this boy traveled through seven realms, went to seven grandfathers, and was given each of these laws in turn, so that he could take it back down to humanity, and so that these teachings would be taught to his people, and so who had forgotten how to live in a good way. And so Debwawen is understood as, the act of speaking from your heart, the act of speaking to what speaking to speaking the truth of your heart. And so humility, Debaden, is one that's understood, that's best understood as thinking of yourself in a lowly manner. And so you're not necessarily putting yourself down by saying, it's not a question of self-esteem nor worth. It's a question of believing that you are equal to all creation. And so just as we met with each other in our lodges, we like to kind of sit down and sit upon the earth, and that literally grounded us on the same level as the rest of life here on earth. It's just believing that you are not above nor below anyone else or anything else. And so respect, Manaj Dewan, which is best understood as treating each other gently. So it's a way of holding each other gently, a way of cherishing one another, an act of gentleness. And so that was, just as we were held by creation in a way that was loving, so too are we asked to hold each other in such a manner. Love, Zagadewan, that speaks about. I was told once that Zaging is talking about a river flowing into a larger body of water, and so just as we were asked to hold each other in a caring manner, we were also asked to be open with one another from our hearts. So Zagadewan, it's best understood as a way of living with an open, flowing heart. Honesty, which is best understood as the correct way of living. When we talk about speaking the truth, when we talk about speaking the truth, you also have to act upon it. When you act upon the truth, and when you live your life in such a way that you follow these sacred laws and you follow the purpose of your life, you're being an honest person, you're living correctly. Courage, Zongadawin. This talks about a strong heart, having a strong heart. So even though there is fear within your heart, Zongadawin, you were given ways of understanding this fear. You are given ways of living through this fear, of carrying this fear, and so to do that is to have that strong heart. And lastly, wisdom, Nabuakawin. To understand all these teachings and to live these teachings is to have Nabuakawan. Nabuakawan would best be understood as enlightenment, and we all know that enlightenment is not just, it's a universal teaching. And so Nabuakawan, the spirit is illuminated by an abundance of light. So these sacred laws, these 7 sacred teachings were and still are very important to our understandings of how we lived and how we should live. And so by the end of that boy's journey, by the time he came back down to earth, that infant, he was an old man. And so that speaks to just how how important and critical it is to follow these teachings. These are lifelong teachings. Next slide, please. So spirituality and ceremony are very, very critical to to our people. We were given ways of connection with Creator, and this connection was mediated by the land, animals, and ancestors. And so, we were given sacred medicines, such as, the 4 sacred medicines, which are tobacco, sage, sweetgrass, and cedar. Those four medicines are very, very critical to, just understanding just how interconnected we are to the land and to all of creation. And these medicines are used in ceremonies. And so for ceremonies, we were given protocols that would help us align ourselves with original instruction and sacred law. And again, language in Anishinaabe is very, very, very critical to understanding such laws, such instructions. Medicine.
Staff, have we lost Elton?
Oh, hello.
Oh, there you are, Elton. Sorry,
Okay,
we
sorry
lost you
about
for
that.
a second.
Yeah, my internet connection is very unstable right now, so my apologies. So we were given all of these ways of living in order to help us live a good life. And again, language is critical to understanding these instructions, these ways of living. And so if we were able to live life in a way as instructed by creation, by Creator, by all those helpers, those atokanig that were that work for us, on the other side, then we achieved Minobamatswin, and as well as Minoyawin. So for this next slide here, this is what those terms mean, because I'm sure that you've all heard Minobamatswin at some point and what that means. Next slide, please. So when one's life is in accordance with sacred law, they may achieve Minobamatswin. And Minobamatswin is best understood as a good way of moving through time and space. And when one's life is aligned with Minobamatswin, they may achieve Minoyawin, which means a good way of living in one's body. A lot of people will say that Minoyawin is physically well. And so when one is physically well, that's because they are able to utilize those medicines, those teachings to conduct themselves in such a manner to be able to be well. And so other terms for mental health as well. My apologies for not including this on the slide, but for mental health, the term would be minosewin, which is something that is functioning well, something that is working well, something that is in good or well condition. And so minosewin relates to thought, minosewin. And so all of these things, because we were told through these teachings that we would be provided a good way of living, then we would have minodebsewin, which is to have enough. That's what it means to have enough. Minodebsewin. Next slide, please. So here we have the medicine wheel. These were teachings that were given to me, and we're just going through the aspects and stages of life very quickly. So life begins in the eastern doorway. Okay, life begins in the eastern doorway. You can see the stage of life within the eastern doorway to be the infant. And so this would also represent the aspect of the mental aspect of being. This is where, as infants, we're beginning to, open our eyes and to really learn, to really develop our brain. Brain development, very, very critical at this stage of life. And we begin to move clockwise into the southern direction, which is when, we're adolescents and we're on the cusp of adulthood, when our bodies begin to change and our brains continue development. And so this represents the physical realm of being for that reason. And as soon as we've moved into that western doorway, we're adults. And so this is when all of our learning becomes action. This is when we carry out our teachings and our purposes, because we've been taught all of these things. We've been taught the ways to live our purpose. And so this is why it represents the emotional realm of being, because this is when we're challenged in our hearts. And so if we're fortunate enough to live a really good long life, then we move into the northern directions, which is when when we achieve elderhood, when our hair is white and we begin to give back all those experiences that we had gone through in our lifetime back to our community, when we begin to teach those children those stories, when we begin to help those young ones with those rites of passages and those ways of being, and to become a counselor for those adults who look to us for that leadership. And so after our life ends, we go back to the center, and then we depart through that western door. The western door represents it represents that doorway of transition, of death and dying. Next slide, please. And so this understanding of once we've transitioned into death, and this is how this is an interpretation that was given to me. So Neboan, that's our language, that's our way of understanding death. And so Ne would be best understood as the spirit within the self, and Bo is breath, but breath that is physically ceasing, and Win is a way of. So Neboan would be understood as the way of the spirit becoming breath again. And so just as we were lowered from the spirit realm into our physical bodies, during that time we were breath. Our spirits were breath. And so at this time in Neboan, and on our return journey back home, we become breath again. And so it's during this time that we will have, usually, traditionally we would have elders, we would have traditional helpers, medicine people who would be attending to us at our bedside. And so it's an instruction that, as a person is dying, that their bodies are smudged, that, the family is smudged, because that spirit, as it's coming to a transition state, that western doorway opens. It begins to open. And so just as, for those of us who are around, our dying loved one, we have to ensure that life is honored as well, and so that the death is honored, that the dying is honored, and this is a very important part of our going out, and so a really important part, how to really honor that teaching would be to just make sure that your facility has some sort of policy that will ensure that we're able to smudge, at least within the room of the hospital or of the facility that's the transitioning patient is in, For instance, at the hospital for St. Joe's, that's one of the policies that we have. We shut the door, we open the window, and we're able to smudge with that patient. And that is one thing that I have had the honor to do for quite a number of patients at this point. And so, and so next slide, please. And so after a person has passed on, it doesn't just end there, because in our perspectives and in our ways, we were given funerary rites. We were given these ceremonies to do for a person's spirit on their journey back to spirit world. And so the sacred fire is a very, very critical element to that person's journey, because the sacred fire is a source of connection with Creator and the spirit world. So a sacred fire is lit for 4 days, 4 nights after someone dies. It's believed that person's journey will take those 4 days and 4 nights. And during this time, the relationship does not end there, because there are still ways that the living can petition for their loved one through the offerings of tobacco, food, and materials, which are put into the fire on behalf of the departed. And so it's believed that these offerings, once they're burned, will be carried over to them at the place that they're at in their 4-day journey. And so the sacred fire is very, very important for the community, for friends and family to come together to, grieve, to celebrate, and to honor the departed one's life. Next, please. And so on the other side, this is Jibe Mikana, which is understood as the spirit road. And so this is the Milky Way galaxy. So if you look up into the night sky and you see that Milky Way galaxy, that is what is understood as Jibe Mikana. This is the spirit road that we travel for those 4 days, 4 nights, once we pass. And so as we begin our journey through the western door, that western doorway is said to be carried on the back of a buffalo. That Mashkote Bejike, that grandfather, and that grandfather holds that door upon his shoulders, because that's how much we were loved, to ensure that our journey was met in a good way. And so that buffalo, it said, will ask us 3 questions before we're able to pass beyond that doorway. And so those 3 questions are, very, very important, and we have to answer those questions in a good way. And so as the spirit transitions into their journey, what's really important about all these understandings of living and dying is that we are still subject to these sacred ways of living. And and so that's why it's important for our loved ones to continue the relationship as if it had never changed. That's why it's important for those offerings to be made. That's why it's important for those prayers to be given, because this journey is just as real for the spirit as it is for us, as we were put onto this earth. And so ultimately, once this Jibe Mikana is traveled, it's said sometimes to be a river, and so sometimes a person will be in a canoe and they'll be floating down this river of stars. Other times it's a road proper, and a person is walking down and they'll make this journey. And sometimes it's a forested path. These teachings all differ, but I suppose it was said to me once that what you see there for those 4 days and 4 nights is what you are meant to see, is what your spirit was meant to see. So next slide, please. And so traveling songs and ancestryhood. So when we talk about honoring one's life through the honoring of one's death and dying, there's, there are many ways that that we do so, not only through those offerings, through those prayers, but we also do it through song. And so if you've ever been to a powwow, chances are you've stuck it to the end. And so this is when the traveling song will be sung. And so the words to this traveling song are Ningo Sha Nisha Wenje Bimosewen. And that means I am the reason you walk. And so the way that it's understood is that this song was given to us by our ancestors. It was given to us through ceremony that those ancestors had said to us, I am the reason you walk. I am why, the culture, I am why our ways of living have continued, that you carry on. I am that reason. And so but then it also has a dual meaning, because when we sing that on the behalf of a departed one, we're also acknowledging, kind of our part in being the reason for our loved one having a really good journey home. When we put out those offerings, when we honor their life in such a way. And so ancestorhood, once we complete our journey, we become ancestors. And when we look at our family unit, ancestorhood, our word for ancestor is anakobijigan, which is actually derived from the act of being tied together, which is dekobadon. That's the act of something being tied. And so that word dekobadon is also it's also found in our funerary practice, which is when our bodies, once we've passed on, when our bodies are being prepared for burial in the act of dekopachkazo, which means our bodies are covered in a blanket and we're tied together and we're carried into our funeral, and when we're lowered into the earth, and so we're also talking about our loved ones in the future as well. And so such is why we were given that instruction. You must look 7 generations behind to honor the ways of living that we were given. But then it's also instructed to look forward 7 generations ahead to ensure that these ways of living continue for the young ones that are yet to come, those spirits that are making their way down to earth in the future, and will come back and will go back to spirit realm, just as it was told to each and every single one of us before this journey ever began. And so everything in our way of living is interconnected. From our health and our wellness, if we do not honor one aspect of being, if it's our spirituality or if it's our mental health, we cannot be whole. And when we're not whole, we're not able to complete our purpose. We're not able to walk in a good way. And that's why we were given these ways of understanding. That's why we were given this responsibility to the earth in order to move together in a good way. And so, as I kind of finish speaking here, what I ask of you is to remember, your loved ones, to remember the ones that, are coming, the young ones that are in your lineage, because one day you're going to be an ancestor too. And these teachings that you were entrusted with to carry out in your life, that's what you're going to be remembered by. And one day, hopefully, you will also be singing this song on the other side, and I am the reason that you walk in such a good way. And that's really the hope of it, the hope that our ancestors were given when we were given these ways of living. So I wanted to say, Getcha miigwech to each and every single one of you for having me and for listening to these teachings. These teachings are not mine; they were just given to me, and so miigwech.
Miigwech, Elton. Miigwech for sharing the teaching so freely and openly with people. And I really encourage you to reflect on some of the things that Elton has said to you and really take them to heart and to recognize that, as these are our teachings as Anishinaabe people, they really guide our thinking and our processes and our values and beliefs, especially when it comes to death and dying. And so miigwech for that, Elton. In the essence of time, I'm just going to say if people have questions, if they want to directly ask them to Elton, maybe during the movement break, we can put Elton's email address back up in the chat. And if people have questions, please reach out to Elton, and I'm positive Elton will be more than ready and willing to support you in that.